Hey, good morning. It's Morning Cup of Context. I'm Sean Griffin. And I was just reading in the scriptures this morning, and something that stuck out to me I thought was interesting. It's 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20 through 23. It says, "But now Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who are asleep. For since by a man came death, by a man also came the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, so also in Christ all will be made alive. But each in his own order, Christ the firstfruits, after that, those who are Christ's at his coming." So it calls Christ the firstfruits, twice in this passage, and I just, that's a unique little term, and I was wondering where it came from. So let's just dig real quick, and let's see where this term firstfruits comes from. Looks like Leviticus 23, verses 10 and 11 says, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land, when I'm going to give you, and you reap its harvest, then you shall bring in the sheaf of the firstfruits of your harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before the Lord for you to be accepted." So, so then the firstfruits is basically when they were harvesting stuff, their vegetation and their produce, whatever they harvested first, they brought to the priest as an offering. Interesting. And it says at the very end for you to be accepted. So let's see what that's possibly about. Ezekiel 44:30 says, "The first of all the first fruits of every kind, and every contribution shall be for the priests. You shall also give to the priests the first of your dough to cause a blessing to rest on your house." So this is interesting. So now it's not just the first fruits of vegetation, but also seemingly of your dough, which can be attributed to what was harvested from the ground as well. But it's the first fruits of. Let's see if we see anything else similar to that. Looks like Paul in Romans 11 is using the same terminology in analogy to add better context to this idea. In Romans 11:16, he says, "If the first piece of dough is holy, the lump is also. And if the root is holy, the branches are too." So this is interesting. Now, even though he's in Romans 11, he's talking about a different concept about how we're grafted in through Yeshua into Israel, and that salvation is going to come, from this idea that the Messiah will save us all. I think it's interesting that he's using that same terminology to describe this idea. So now we've got the vegetation of the first fruits, the dough, and how the first parts of them cause the rest to be accepted, the rest to be holy, which is the idea of being accepted, to God. Here in Romans 8, he's talking in verse 22 and 23, he says, "For the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. Not only this, but also we ourselves, having the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of the body." Now, there's two things in here that I think is interesting, because he says, not only say we have the first fruits of the Spirit of God, so that's interesting, meaning there's more to come, which is analogous to the idea of when we're birthed by the Spirit of God on the resurrection day. But also it says that hasn't happened yet. We eagerly await for our adoption as sons. Now I know in Ephesians 4 and other places it talks about how we're children of the light. He who do the deeds of God are the sons and daughters of God. We understand that principle. But here it says we're eagerly awaiting the adoption as sons, and he connects it with saying the redemption of our body, which is the first resurrection event. So let's see, Romans 8:24 and 25, it says, "For in hope we have been saved, but hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what he already sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, with perseverance we wait eagerly for it." So right here he's saying we haven't been saved yet because we're hoping that we're going to be saved when we see this arrive. Now this, of course, is right after the verses I just read about the resurrection. So he's talking about this idea that we hope for what we do not see, which is the resurrection to come. And perseverance, we eagerly wait for it, and we do. So now let's look back again at 1 Corinthians 15, and maybe we have a little bit better contextual understanding of why Jesus is mentioned as the first fruits, and in connection with the resurrection of the dead. So it says, "But now Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who are asleep." So by definition, that means that he's going to make the rest of us holy, because he's the first fruits. He became glorified and holy in his resurrection, and now, as it says later on down, "For as in Adam all die, so also in Christ all will be made alive. But each in his own order, Christ the firstfruits, and then after that, those who are Christ's at his coming." So when he returns, this has given us a time clue as well, a contextual time clue that this first resurrection event doesn't happen until he actually returns. And I think that's pretty amazing. I love finding connections in his word, because first resurrection is really important for people to understand. And I think that that's a wonderful connection there, just to understand a little bit deeper into how his law pointed to the blessed hope that we have. So I hope you guys have a good morning, and just remember, context creates comprehension. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.